So we are 13-22 on the season, which is actually somehow better than I expected. But at this current point, we've got some struggles lineup-wise. Michael Carter-Williams is our starting point guard, and let me tell you, I want him off this team as soon as possible. Then we've got James Ennis starting at small forward for us, and Al-Farouq Aminu is at power forward for us while Aaron Gordon is out. So we are in a pretty bad spot. But as I mentioned before, this could put us in a position to be at the top of this year's draft. Currently at the 13th seed in the East, that has us picking 6th overall, and every mock draft has us taking Jalen Suggs. And Suggs is a good prospect for sure, but he also prevents a lot of the same strengths and weaknesses as Fultz, even if he will probably be the better player. But regardless of that, we'll be picking pretty high, and it's making me wonder whether or not we should sell on some of our guys now. We've got a few guys up for contract extensions, and the only notable ones are Fournier and Gordon. I've had conversations with both their agents, and Fournier is actually willing to accept a longer-term deal of around $12 million a season. And I don't know about you, but having a solid 15 to 17 point scorer for like $12 million a year is pretty great. We'd probably give him a little more than that if we did keep him, but there is also the possibility of signing him to an extension and trading him to another team. Obviously, to keep things clean, we'd have to have some discussions with both the team and Fournier, but I do think that we could work something out. I honestly think he's worth a first round pick too. He's listed at 6'7", can create his own shot somewhat, good 3-point shooter, and he's not a bad defender, believe it or not. So pretty much any team could use him, but I'm looking at a couple in particular at the moment. One of those teams on my list is the New Orleans Pelicans, who desperately need some shooting around Zion. And the move would pretty much just be Fournier for Bledsoe plus a first in a couple or a few seconds. Bledsoe is really just kind of a replacement for the year he'd walk in free agency, and he doesn't provide a lot of value in the trade, but those picks could be used as ammo in another trade down the line. And the Pelicans have plenty of picks to choose from right now. As for the second team on my list, this one moves into more complicated territory. The Golden State Warriors bench is a mess right now, and they're also in luxury tax hell at the moment, thanks to all these contracts on the books. But what if we traded something like Fournier and Gordon, or Gordon and Ross, or some combination of our players for Andrew Wiggins? Now, I haven't talked to Golden State about this yet, but the move would essentially be two of those players for Wiggins straight up. Wiggins has been good for them, but he hasn't been great. So I think they could definitely justify trading him for two good to potentially great role players, especially when Klay Thompson comes back. It's very possible the thing Gordon needs most is a change of scenery, and Golden State would provide a very good system for him to further develop his talents in, and would provide them a multi-positional defender. And he gets to learn from Draymond. I mean, isn't that his comp right now? As for us, we get the chance to put Wiggins under Steve Clifford, who hopefully can get him to buy in on defense. If he can at least be decent defensively, that will be a start. We can also get him involved in handoffs with Vooch, which can get him going to the basket, which is where he's strongest on offense. So these are just trades to think about, because I think we can definitely get a bunch of stuff out of our guys before the trade deadline. Wiggins is a move I've had in my head for a minute now, and maybe if we can get him to buy in to this team setting, maybe he can not become a star for us, but become a very high-level player. So that's just something to think about. But since I mentioned a play a minute ago, I haven't talked at all pretty much about how this team is going to actually play. This playbook is not set at all in stone, especially considering we don't have our main guys, and there is potential for a decent amount of roster turnover this offseason and trade deadline. But nonetheless, there's going to be a lot of two things: pick and rolls and handoffs. There's also going to be a pretty decent amount of Vucevic post-ups, but those are the two main things. The pick and roll plays are designed obviously for basic pick and roll stuff, but also to get other guys going to the basket or around screens either before or after the actual screen and roll has happened. Whether this will work or not is something we'll have to wait and see on, but in theory I think it will definitely help our somewhat struggling offense. As for the handoffs, they aren't really anything special. We've got a few at the top of the key, a few at the elbow, some plays have off-ball screens, while others have more straightforward head of steam to the basket handoffs. Then, as I said, we'll definitely get our fair share of Vucevic post-ups, some of which will have some stuff to hopefully result in switches for Vooch, and some that will have guys running around a bit. I'm hoping a lot of movement will help our offense flow a bit easier, because there really isn't any go-to bucket getter on this team as of now. But as I said, this is far from set in stone because I'm sure half these plays won't work and some new ones will have to be implemented. But regardless, we will definitely be a team that hangs their hats on defense. Not right now though. Do I really need to point out our starters again for the time being? Anyway, I have some calls to make. Gotta start preparing for what is hopefully a very busy trade deadline for us.